everyone, welcome back to the studio. We're here for another episode of Branding with Bex 2026, and today we're diving into something really exciting, and this is all about analog living. So you guys may have seen this information on Instagram and people really just taking a step back in the new year, and I think we're going to see this trend throughout the year, and I think there's a lot of great takeaways from it. So it's really about a mindset and a lifestyle that's prioritizing presence, physical experiences, and intentional slowness. In a world that we're constantly flooded with information, we're constantly scrolling on our phones, we use social media to fill the time. I think this analog living is a trend that we all should be watching as creators and something that we can really apply in our personal lives. Without further ado, let's just dive right into the content. All right, guys, so here we are back in the studio. Just me today. Actually, the cats have migrated out of my office for some reason. I am here sipping on my water. I've started doing these mineral drops this year. We'll update you guys on whether they really help or not. I feel like they do give me some more energy, but we'll see. Anyway, they say to start with like 10 drops a day and then move throughout the week, like add more to them. So I'll give it a go. It's the new year. We're staying hydrated. We are refueling our bodies with minerals, and that's what we're doing. All right, so overall, you may be thinking, how does analog living apply to social media? Because we're trying to get people to absorb our content, and whether we're a business owner or a content creator, like we want people to sit on social media to absorb our content, right? Well, yes and no. So I think analog living is a really important trend to follow. And I think it's also great for the mental health and mindset of creators out there. Something that can happen with content creation is you can get really sucked into and absorbed into the feed, right? Like you're looking at constant trends, you're looking at what's going viral, you're looking at how you can, adapt some of these trends, or you're scrolling. And unfortunately, sometimes something that comes into play too is like the analytics side of things, where it's like constantly checking your analytics, seeing how each post is landing. And it can get really stressful and overwhelming from the mental health aspect. So I think this analog living mindset is going to be something we're seeing a lot of moving forward. And I think it's something we really should keep in mind as we're developing our strategy and also prioritizing our own mental health in 2026. So what is analog living? It's really a mindset and a lifestyle. You may have seen a lot of carousel posts about this too, but it's really about just being present, enjoying physical in-person experiences like the real world that exists outside of the cell phone, and in being intentional in the slowness of your life. So instead of constant digital stimulation, we're sitting with our thoughts. I think there's a big trend happening right now too, where people are taking like an hour out of their day to sit there and just to sit and to not do anything. And it honestly reminds me of, when you were a kid and there was downtime in the summer or, on a weekend when the weather wasn't great and you were kind of just like, what do I do to fill the time? I think that actually sparked so much creativity and so much innovation that people are returning back to that to get some of that creativity back. They're no longer just stuck in this robotic scroll, and I think it's really helpful. So it's really about using tech on purpose instead of by default. So instead of having a downtime moment or being on an elevator or sitting down waiting for a doctor's appointment, people are looking around them and being present instead of sitting there and scrolling on their phone. It's really about being real, tactical, and human in a world that's optimized for like speed, algorithms, constant output, constant content creation. Gary Vee probably would not like my views on this because he's one that says, post all this content throughout the day. But I think finding that balance is really important for your mental health, and also probably why I don't have the following that Gary Vee does. So anyway, what does analog living really mean? And this is how you can apply it in your life as well. So it means having fewer inputs and deeper experiences. So instead of scrolling, and if you want to absorb content, it's maybe reading a physical book, watching a movie, like sitting down and watching a movie for a few hours instead of picking up your phone, writing things by hand instead of typing them out or using your notes app, filming, like photography, like using a real camera, using a disposable camera, like being more present with your content and also more conscious. I actually just had a conversation about this where it's like the content you take with your phone versus an old camera from like the 90s, there's such a difference. I know the quality and the megapixels are so much better on the phone, but when you had to take a picture back in the day, which I'm dating myself here, when you had to take a picture back in the day, like you cherish that photo because it used up one of the pictures on your camera, like your camera allotted film amount, and then you had to pay to get developed. So there's just like all these hurdles, and I think that made each piece of content or each photo that you were taking that much valuable. I literally say piece of content. You could tell how much I've gotten into social over the years. Cooking without multitasking, so like sitting down, reading, doing a recipe, like actually cooking. This one's clearly not something I really enjoy because not the best chef. Conversations without phones on the table. So, when you go out to dinner and someone has their phone and they just kind of like place it upside down on the table or they place it beside them. And like, I'm guilty of doing this too. it's removing that, right? It's like having a conversation without the phone in the picture. It's also that shift from consuming everything to experiencing it fully. So going and experiencing that situation for yourself. Like you see an idea on Instagram, then you take it and you run with it and you go to that restaurant or you go to that event. It's really about that shift from just sitting there and consuming it to actually experiencing it yourself. It also means slower rhythm. So it's pushing back on that urgency culture, which I think is something we're going to see a lot of. People are tired of feeling constantly reachable, is the way to say it, I guess. Like, so people don't want someone to sit there and text them and expect a text back. Like, I am a text backer in like 3 to 5 business days, roughly. So, like, they want that constant feeling like they have to be reachable to go away in the new year. It's really about having like your ideas marinate, not really feeling the pressure to post instantly the second you're doing something. You're actually physically enjoying where you are and then posting an Instagram story later. I told you guys about this in a previous episode, but basically this year I'm really thinking about doing Instagram free weekends. So far, so good. And same thing with Facebook, and really just detaching on the weekends. Like, I don't need to be on social media, create content Monday through Friday. I'm active on those platforms then, but then when it's the weekend, like I'm clocking out, and I think we should all maybe do the same. So that way on the weekends, we're actually like present and enjoying time. You could post your recap on Monday. Trust me, the views are actually a lot higher when you post them on Monday than when you post them on like a Saturday night. And it just really allows for that creativity, and you're not constantly creating without chasing these trends or whatever's like going viral. You're just like creating because it's coming authentically and naturally to you. And like I said before, that slower rhythm is really important because it allows that boredom, and boredom often leads to creativity. Another thing people are really prioritizing with this analog living is the tangibility over the optimization. So a physical object instead of having a digital substitute. For example, you guys know I'm a huge advocate for paper planners, and that is something people are leaning more towards. So this is my gorgeous paper planner. I do have a blog post on and I think a podcast actually about just like going to select my planner every year. It's like one of my favorite August activities actually, because that is when Home Goods and Marshalls like rolls out their planners for the year. So I go there and I always get a nice planner. This year I went with this one. It's just so pretty and it's like such like a good feel, This one is awesome. It allows me to really see an overall idea of like each month and then each week and really focus on the goals for that week and things I want to get done instead of sitting there scrolling through an app. I will say we do love the skylight, and that is something that helps keep like our like household here in check and like make sure we're on top of everything when it comes to like things we have coming up or people coming to visit and stuff like that. But I love a paper planner for my day-to-day, my to-do list, and things like that. People are also opting for printed photos instead of camera rolls. Like I said, there's something about like a print that just is great. Like, I don't know what it is. It's like having a physical print because maybe you can hang it up on your wall. I have photo frames all over our house, and like I just love looking at pictures instead of just sitting there and scrolling through them. I think it places a lot more value on the photo too, if that makes sense. And also like having vinyl, CDs, going to live music, all of that is something people are really craving this year. Handwritten notes or letters. I'm a huge advocate for sending a letter for someone on their birthday, sending them the notes. And I think it just shows an extra layer of you took the time to care instead of just sending up a message. Also, journaling is really important, and the value is really about being emotional, not super efficient. I mean, I think we can be efficient in some areas of our lives and be very tactical, but overall, I would say it's really just being intentional with our time. So a lot of creators are drawn to this, and how can you apply this in your life right now? Creators, especially online, we often experience burnout from overconsumption of content. We're sitting there scrolling. We get that like brain rot where we just sit there and scroll. We're led by the algorithm in terms of creativity. So when we are online, you know what's going to land with your audience based on your analytics. You know what type of content each platform is pushing out, whether it be short form video, voiceover reels, things like that. And that stifles creativity, in my opinion. It makes you create content because you know it's going to get hits and it's going to be like a dopamine hit and people are going to like it. And it's not showing like your true creative self. It also goes into that whole measuring worth by the analytics. Like you're now creating content, placing your worth of your content in how the content performs. And I think this is really tough, especially for people that are in like a more creative space, whether it be like photography or drawing or painting, things like that, because of what AI has done, where it's people are able to create that so easily through AI that now that's like people can't tell the value of like something that someone took hours to do or months to create and then someone just pumped out something on AI. I think there's a big difference there, and I think that that's one of the reasons, like that creative feel, that creative time is something that people want. They want that analog living again where they're taking time to create something of value, but not judging the value based on the social media metrics. It gives you space to independently think. So it gives you space to step back, to think independently. There's a quote, it's like, if you're on the side of the majority, it's time to stop and think or pause and reflect, something along those lines. But I think that's really important because especially as different things happen and world events happen, you need to take a step back and think about this like holistically from like your point of view and to take in the information without reacting. Over the last few years, we've seen so much of this where it becomes like these like little echo chambers of this is the way you're supposed to think on either side. And whatever side you fall in, it's like all of the content feels the same and they're all pushing the same message. And if you don't align with that, then you're not thinking it like, if you don't align with that, then you're not allowed in that group. And then you're also overall not thinking independently. So I think it's so important to be a critical thinker, to stop just taking everything at face value and to trust whatever creator is putting out that content out there and to really think independently. Giving yourself that time to do that analog living really helps with that independence and that critical thinking moving forward. It also helps you to reconnect with your tastes. Like, what do you actually enjoy doing and not just following trends? And you create from that lived experience again, which I think is so important, especially as, we're moving forward where AI can literally create so much content. What makes you stand out is your personal vision and your personal brand and how you are as a person. That's what people are going to want to see moving forward. And I think that ties into giving yourself that creative freedom. So how can creators apply this? So if you are practically thinking like, hey, this sounds great. Like, I need to take a break from social. I need time to breathe. I need time to like create and have fun again with my content and to stop with the scroll and the brain rot. Because maybe if you're someone that like picks up your phone, you're like, oh, I just feel icky picking it up again and scrolling, or it doesn't make me feel motivated. It makes me feel like kind of cruddy or crappy. I think that taking that into consideration is important. And here's a few little things you can do to apply in your daily life. So you could start creating offline first. So before the digital tools, use the analog ones. Brain dump your ideas in a notebook or in a Google Doc. Sketch content concepts on your page. Write your captions longhand first by yourself. That also removes the pressure of performance. It reconnects you to your voice. You can then later use tools like AI, ChatGPT to help formulate maybe like an idea with a hook or something like that. But overall, the content should be coming from you and your authentic experience. You also want to think about building an input diet. So being very selective about what you're consuming. Limit your creator scrolling before creating. So just create the content. Don't sit there and scroll through everyone else's content first. Replace scrolling with walking, reading, or journaling, or listening to music. And ideas will come to you quickly when you're not online. So when I'm on a walk, that's when I get my best creative ideas. And I think that that's really important because the less you intake from everyone else, the more original content you are going to put out into the world. And you want to separate creation from posting. So oftentimes we will create content in batches offline. So that's like what I like to do. So when I'm creating my social media content, I am out being, creative, doing something, living in the moment, whatever it may be. And I'll take the pictures and then later I'll think about how I can share that online. And I post later more intentionally. So here's a quick example. Recently we had that murder mystery party and I recently did a post on Bexy about it. This is actually my most popular podcast episode, was how to host one of these parties last year. So I figured why not do a post on my Instagram account. So I shared that post, and instead of just posting pictures on my stories in real time of like us at the party doing these things and not really giving people much value, I waited, actually posted like a month later, and then I shared how to throw a party of your own, where you can find the kit, what to wear, what menu we served, and things like that. So that way people knew, like, if I wanted to host a party, I can save this content and come back to it later. So it gives everybody like a different, fun, creative idea of something to do. Now, later I posted that intentionally. I very easily could have just thrown up a picture of the signature drink and just did no context. But instead, I decided to create more of a micro blog and give people a little bit more value. And honestly, the post did pretty well, but I would say that I really detached my creation from validation. This happened like over the last few years. Like, I don't hold my worth of my content creation based on how many people like it. And I think that as a creator, that's really important. I understand analytics are important, but I also think if you're a creative person, that's something that you really have to just remember, that like you are creating content, you're creating something. And just because the algorithm didn't pick it up or if people don't like it, doesn't mean it's not good. But it doesn't mean that you place all your worth in that and the validation, because you should find joy from what you're doing aside from whether people like it or not. And also I think something that creators are doing is helping to romanticize this whole process of creating content again. So basically, you're creating content because it feels good and it feels authentic to you. You're documenting moments. You're not manufacturing moments. You're not going and standing somewhere and taking a picture because you want a picture in this place. Like, you're there because you're experiencing it in real time, and then you're going to share it with your audience later. So let the imperfections exist. You want like that real human energy. You want like the polished perfection is really not happening moving forward. I don't really think that's going to be a thing because of how easy it is for people to create these AI generated images. And people want like a real human experience and that real authentic photo or content that you're creating. Doesn't mean you can't create nice photos and use nice photography. I think that that's important too, if that's true to you. But I think that putting the pressure on yourself to get the perfect photo with the perfect lighting and the perfect setting, it's not really a realistic or obtainable goal moving forward. We want to let your life lead your content. And I think in the new year, you're going to see that analog living reminds creators that your life is the content, you are not the content. So people are going to start thinking about that, living in life first and then sharing it. So travel, hobbies, conversations, routines. This is rich content because it's not created for the algorithm. It's evergreen. It's content that people can go back to. If you went to a cool restaurant and you had a great experience and you ordered something on the menu and it tasted delicious, people want to know about that. And then later on, they can experience it themselves. That's a lot more evergreen versus a photo of you sitting at a restaurant looking super hot. Give you props, girl. But then, nobody really knows anything about it. They're not coming back to it for later. It was really more so just like an instant dopamine boost, if that makes sense. So why is this resonating now? I think we're seeing this trend because always online is really moving to selectively present. People want to be real. I think we're getting fatigued from social media. We've been on it since like 2011, 2012, and it's just, people are getting tired of it. And I think people want, instead of a hyper polished ChatGPT social media post, they want like human realness online. Viral is kind of out. There's so many viral creators out there. There's so many people with millions of followers out there. You don't even know like who's an influencer celebrity anymore. Like if you saw them on the street, you really wouldn't know. They don't want the viral. They want the meaningful. They want the real. And analog living is really important because it aligns with that slow living, the digital minimalism, personal storytelling, and then like niche value driven audiences. So it's not like people are saying, I'm getting rid of my cell phone, but they're just being more intentional with the use of their phone. And as we reframe this for creators, I just really want you guys to take this into consideration that the digital platform is like the stage for showing your life. And the analog life is really like the rehearsal and like living your life. Your life and your behind the scenes is, you can be selective with what you choose to share with your audience, but people want the personal, real, raw experience that you had. They're really over the like sugar-coated, overly aesthetic posts. I think people are catching on to a lot of that too. So it's just something to keep in your mind moving forward. It gives you an idea of like what it means to be present, what it means to convert that into the content creation space, and how you can use other people's ideas of like what analog living means for them to apply to your content, because it's going to make you even more relatable and personable online. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode about analog living. It's definitely something I plan to take with me and moving forward into 2026. I mentioned I'm doing those social media free weekends, which I think is really helpful. Also, I really limit my scroll time during the week. It's usually around like an hour a day, which I know might seem like a lot, but like 5 hours for the week for someone that does social media like as a side hustle is like, I think kind of low, but I'm enjoying it. I don't feel like scrolling so much anymore. I think I'm more interested in just living life in the moment and sharing about it later on. So if you're like me, maybe analog living is something you want to try. If not, totally up to you. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll catch up with you all next week's episode.